The following is a presentation of the Mat Talk Podcast Network.
You are now logged into WarUp on the WPIAL, featuring your hosts, Greg Warnock and Jeff Upson. PA Power Wrestling. Pennsylvania is wrestling.
Welcome into WarUp on the WPIAL. Greg Warnock alongside Jeff Upson, recapping the 5 big tournaments from around the area this past weekend. Also the scores as well. Not too many scores jump out, Jeff, from this past week. I think the biggest one that really affects the standings, Norwin knocking off Franklin Regional 50-24.
Yeah, 50-24 was a big win for Norwin. I mean, they got a lot of close matches that they were able to come out on top of, and there was quite a few tight matches here that could have went either way, but really convincing win for Norwin. Yeah,
and really Vince DiAugustine really making his mark with this victory, because we talked about Franklin Regional maybe getting into that mix of the top 4 as one of those teams. And they had, a couple toss-up wins went both ways. Zach McCann beating John Altieri 4-3, but Chase Kranitz knocking off Mason Spears 4-3. I don't think anyone would have expected that kind of result.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was a little surprised to see that, but Chase is, I mean, he's tough, and he's been wrestling tough this season thus far. So is Mason Spears. So I think those two are both going to see each other again. In fact, they did end up being in the same bracket at the Westmoreland County, which we'll talk about. But if you look at the rest of the results here, none of the really matches were that close outside of those two. You look at Falls in 48, 55, 321, 17 seconds, 1 minute, 31 seconds, 32 seconds. I mean, we're talking about a quick bam, thank you, ma'am match. There was a lot of quick falls other than those two close matches at 38 and 45.
Another match to note in AAA, Waynesburg challenged a little bit by Chartiers Valley. A little surprising that the score was as tight as it was. 42-30 was the victory for Waynesburg.
Yeah, a little surprised at how tight that was, but I mean, Chartiers Valley, they are a good program. They have a good coaching staff and they have a good youth program. So, but I mean, Waynesburg, they're going to be okay. I think so.
Yeah, really, if you look at the actual box score, 3 forfeits given to Chartiers Valley, which is what made it so close. AA, not too many surprises here. Mount Pleasant gets on the winning scoreboard. Even though they give up so many forfeits, they do knock off York, Derry over Southmoreland. I think 3B is probably the most competitive subsection in AA.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you there. And it's still, I mean, I hate to say it's still early because it's really not, but it's still, there is a lot of unknowns with the section layout, so to speak.
Yeah, we're 3 weeks in. We still have wrestling action coming up the next 2 weeks, which will decide the standings for the subsection. So a lot of the big matchups, though, still to come if you look at it in a way. We've had a few big ones, a few surprises, but not too much, to be honest with you. But really this week, I think, we'll start to tell the tale of where we're at and where we're going in that last week.
Yeah, these next 2 weeks are critical to see who gets into the team playoffs.
It's the big tournaments from around the area over this past weekend. The Westmoreland County Tournament. Kiski area led all teams with 233 points. Hempfield number 2, Norwin number 3, Burrell number 4, and Franklin Regional closing out the top 5. Let's start things off at 106 pounds, where your champion was Carter Dybert. He tech balls Luke Gabig of Mount Pleasant in the finals.
When he gets on a roll and he gets on top, he can't be stopped, really. I mean, very few people in the state are going to be able to stop him when he's on top. And, he's the number 2 ranked guy in the state for a reason. And Luca Big is a solid wrestler, but you're running up against a guy who can put up points in bunches. It's almost Spencer Lee-like in how quickly he can score those points. That tech fall was in 3 minutes and 8 seconds.
Another result, we're looking at AA stuff, too. Gabig and Colton McAllen, 2 guys who could face off against one another quite a few times. Gabig tech falls him 18-2 at 5:02. McAllen comes back for 3rd.
Yeah, and Gabig, we have him ranked number 19th in the state, and McAllen 21. So I think they're a little close, for the ranking, so to speak. They probably need to separate a little bit.
113 pounds. Kyle Burkholder was your champion. He beats Finn Sullivan of Franklin Regional 3-1. Sullivan closing the gap a little bit. Noah Nibus of Mount Pleasant, he challenged Burkholder in the semis. Burkholder beat him 6-1, but Nibus ends up finishing in 4th behind Marino Angelicio of Latrobe.
Yeah, and Burkholder, I mean, I don't know if you saw that match or not, Greg, but that match with Finn Sullivan, that went into overtime. That was in sudden victory, and that was a close match. And I think Finn is, I mean, he's closing the gap, and he's right there with him.
120 pounds, your champion was Ian Oswald of Burrell. He knocks off Curtis Phipps of Norman, getting back on the loss he had last week at the Powerade. He knocks him off 2-1 for the title.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say we've jinxed our last guest, but we had Ryan Sullivan on from Shaler, and he ended up, before the Powerade, he ended up not winning the Powerade. We had Curtis Phipps on after he won the Powerade, and then he loses to Ian Oswald in the finals. So we're not going to have a wrestler on the show.
Yeah, not this week.
Because no one's going to want to talk to us.
Right.
They're going to be like, no, I'm not. It's like being on the Madden NFL cover, right? It's a curse. So please, wrestlers, we're really a lot of fun. But Ian Oswald, I mean, and these two guys, they know each other so well. And we heard that from Phipps last week when we interviewed him on the show, and he talked about how they know each other so well. He knew it was going to be a tight match. I wasn't surprised to see Oswald come out on top of this one, because those two, they're high quality wrestlers, and they're not two that are going to put up a ton of points, right? Neither one of them is going to really put up a ton of points on high quality wrestlers. They tend to keep it a little bit closer. So when you have it that close of a margin, it's very easy to go, other ways that you may not expect. So, but still a really good win for Ian Oswald. I mean, he's the number 3 ranked guy in the state currently, so he's right up there with him. And of course, he's only a sophomore. And
a quality win in the semis too, beating Logan Saliga of Belle Vernon 3-2. Saliga came back for third. He beat Noah Teeter of Mount Pleasant. Noah Teeter finishing in fourth place. 126 pounds, Colton Camacho of Franklin Regional. He was your champion, and boy, he was impressive. A fall and 2 major decisions, including the major over Ty Simmerman of Derry to win the title.
Yeah, that was his 4th title, is his 4th in a row, the Westmoreland County Coaches Association tournament, and a lot different than when it was his freshman year. I was there his freshman year when he won that. It was very, very close. I believe it was in overtime, but Colton really put the exclamation point on this his senior year, and really looked sharp, and especially after Powerade, right? Because we said he struggled a little bit in that quarterfinal round, and then even the 3rd place match against Kenny Heyman. So it's nice for him to sort of bounce back in a solid way.
Couple of AA results just to keep an eye on. Ty Simmerman of Derry beat Damian George of Mount Pleasant by a 15-4 major decision win. Trent Velachik of Burrell ends up beating Damian George in the consolations 4-3. He finished 4th, and George finishing in 6th because he medical forfeited out. Yeah, and Ty Simmerman is actually up a weight. He was 120. He's up to 126. I don't know if this is a weight that he feels more comfortable at or not, but it's still nice to see him, if he is going up a weight, and challenging a guy like Colton Camacho. 132 pounds, your champion, Darren Miller of Kiski. He beats Gabe Willishell of Latrobe 7-2 for the title. Zach McCann beats John Altieri of Norman for 3rd place 2-0. Yeah, and this is, I mean, we circled this match, the Darren Miller and Gabe Willishell match. It was a big one here, and these guys have seen each other throughout the last couple years, it seems like. And for Darren Miller to come out with a quality win, 7-2, I mean, again, Darren Miller's he's going to be dangerous this year. He's wrestling on a different level. He's firing on all cylinders. I've never seen Darren wrestle the way he is right now. And he beat a really quality Gabe Willishell, a guy who can keep it close with anybody, and he's so funky. So really solid win for Darren Miller. 138 pounds, your champion was Ty Linsenbigler of Hempfield. He was impressive. 2 falls, a tech, and a major. Beats Mason Spears of Franklin Regional in the final. Spears and Kranitz do not wrestle this go-around. Kranitz was in the top half of the bracket. He actually dropped the decision to Jason Baker of Darien and wrestled all the way back for 3rd. Yeah, and how about AJ Corrado, number 5 in the state, and he finishes 5th at the Westmoreland tournament. So that just shows you the depth here, and really shows you how Ty Linsenbigler, man, that was an impressive win, 18-8 over Mason Spears. Mason Spears is I like him. He's a really good wrestler. He's hard-nosed. He never gives up. I got to see him at King of the Mountain. He was at the Surge. I like the way he wrestles. But Ty Linsenbigler, he must be doing something different in his training and preparation, because for him to come out and major him 18-8, very, very quality win for him. I'm very excited to see how Ty does, because I'm not saying I wasn't impressed with him at Powerade, but I thought he wrestled well, but I wanted to see a different level. And this against Spears really showed that. 138 here was a deep weight class. Yeah, it really was. All top 6 guys were solid here in this weight. 145 pounds, Nick Coy of Penn Trafford, your champion. Tight, though, in the final. He only beats Enzo Morlacki of Kiski 1-0.
Yeah, and these guys were really close in the dual meet. I believe Nick Coy won in overtime, sudden victory. But Nick Coy, I mean, again, he's another one where he's been around the block a few times, and he knows how to close out matches. But Enzo, you keep it that close with him, eventually it's going to come back and bite you. He's going to end up winning one, and you don't want to be in the postseason.
152 pounds, your champion, Cam Connor of Kiski. He does it with 4 falls to get the title. Yeah,
and I'm super impressed with Cam. I said that after Powerade. He's just wrestling on a different level. Him and Darren Miller both are just they did something. They did something over the summer, and I don't know if it's committing to college that kind of got the weight off their shoulder, but they're both wrestling at such a high level. Not saying I didn't think they would be wrestling at this high of a level, but you always get that sort of, all right, I'm already committed to college. I'm kind of going to, sail through my senior year, not really worried about too much, not really trying to blow people out. And Cam Connor's just, like you said, dangerous. He's just beating people pretty bad. And it continued that throughout the Westmoreland County.
160 pounds, Jack Bloomer of Kiski wins the title. 3 falls and then a decision in the finals over Austin Malee of Burrell 3-1.
This was a tight match here, too. I got to watch this one, and Malee's coming down from 170. Bloomer, though, he prevails once again. Those Kiski guys, again, something in the water there, but they keep on wrestling tough, and Jack Bloomer gets his title.
170 pounds, your champions, Nick Delp of Kiski, as he defeats John Bakar of Penn Trafford 4-0 for the championship.
Can we change the record, Greg? I feel like all we're talking about is Kiski area here.
It's just solid line. 4 guys,
Yeah.
Right back to back.
Delp is another one. I like the way he's been wrestling recently, but give some credit to John Bacher, who's really kept it close with him, and he's ranked number 22 in the state, so he's right there with them. And of course, you had Noah Hutcherson from Valley, who was number 13 in the state in Double A. So good showing by John.
182 pounds, your champion, Scott Joel of Bell Vernon. He wins by fall over Dayton Pitzer of Mount Pleasant in the final. Pitzer, the freshman phenom coming into this, and you had to wonder how that matchup was going to shake out. Were you surprised Joel gets the fall here?
So I said this to somebody before. I said, whoever wins this is going to win by fall. I said that beforehand. I don't know who, but whoever wins this, I'm going to lean towards Joel in this because obviously senior against a freshman, but I said whoever wins this is going to win by fall because Pitzer, I mean, my gosh, look at his results. He has a ton of falls, but good win for Scott Joel. Dane Pitzer, good for him to take a loss here because you don't want to get too big of a head, going into sort of the really
critical part of the season.
Yeah, critical part of the season, right? So I was very excited to see this match. It was a good one.
Yeah, you mentioned it. Joel, 3 falls to get to the finals. Pitzer, 3 falls to get to the finals.
Right.
So there's definitely the fall happening right here at that weight class. 195 pounds, your champion was Braden Roskowski of Kiski. He defeats Justin Kramer of Hempfield 4-2 in the finals.
And Braden's going to play such a critical role in the team aspect for Kiski in the next couple weeks here. I think he is one that's going to make or break him and Enzo. And I hate to put the pressure on the young guys, but those two are going to make or break this Kiski lineup when it comes to wrestling these top teams, not only in the WPIAL, but in the state. And it showed that Braden is up for the challenge because he beat a really tough Justin Kramer in the finals.
220 pounds, Dom DeLuca of Derry. He was your champion. 3 falls to win the title. His final fall over Ryan Weinzen of Norwin. Weinzen had a big win in the semis. He beat Dylan Ferretti of Hempfield 5-0. Ferretti comes back for third.
Yeah, Weinzen, a guy who I just been impressed with. I was impressed with him at Powerade. I kind of kicked myself because I was like, man, I didn't give him any respect prior to Powerade. Dom DeLuca must have listened to our podcast because he was like, you know what, I'm going to go out there and show that I'm not going to lay down for someone like Braxton Amos, so I'm going to come out and tear it up, and that's what he did.
285 pounds, your champion, Isaiah Vance of Hempfield. He had a tight 3-2 victory over Dave Schufert of Valley in the final.
Man, those two combined, those are trouble. I mean, if those two come flying at you when you're taking pictures beside the mat, you better be careful because these are two big boys. And, it kind of was a stereotypical heavyweight match, 3-2. And Dave Schufert, he kind of just shot himself out of gas. It's almost like he shot so many times. And if you get stuck under a guy like Isaiah Vance, eventually it's going to take a toll on you.
So that's the results from the Westmoreland County Tournament. The Tri-County Tournament also happening this past weekend. Your top 5 there, Cannon McMillan finishes in first with 247.5. Waynesburg in second with 206. Trinity in third Peters Township in 4th, and Burgettstown rounds out your top 5. If you look at the weight classes at 106 pounds, your champion was Jacob Haupt of Cannon McMillan. He won all 3 matches by fall and winning the title there. 113 pounds, also Jimmy Baxter of Cannon McMillan. He wins the title by fall over Nate Yeagle of McGuffey in a tight 7-5 win over Bryce Wilkes of Peters Township in the semi.
Yeah, I mean, Jimmy, he had a great win at Powerade over Gable Strickland from Benton. He wasn't able to get on the podium there at Powerade, but comes back and has a great Tri-CAD tournament here, beating Bryce Wilkes and a tough Nate Yeagle. I mean, Jimmy Baxter came in ranked number 16 in the state. Bryce Wilkes was number 17th. Really good win over him, and then a dominating performance against Yeagle. So Jimmy Baxter, he's peaking at the right time, so to speak. His record won't indicate it. He's just barely over 500, but with a schedule that Cannon Mac has, that's still pretty good.
And Bryce Wilkes, you don't see a lot of stuff from Peters Township, but he looked pretty impressive in this tournament.
Yeah, he absolutely did. And remember, this is a guy who beat Zach Whitmer from St. Joe's Catholic at Powerade a week prior when he was up at 120 pounds. And now, down at 113. I don't know if his weight's an issue or not, but really good win for Jimmy.
120 pounds, your champion was Cole Hammett of Waynesburg. He beats Jacob Gardner of Cannon McMillan 8-5 for the title. Jimmy Guire of Best Center finishes in 3rd place. He dropped an 8-0 major decision to Gardner in the semis.
Gardner is another one. I mean, I think he was a little banged up at Powerade, but really came out and impressed me here at the Tri tournament. And then Cole Hammett, as you mentioned. I mean, this is a guy who snuck on the podium at Powerade, wins Tri CAD, so you got to think he's feeling pretty good where he's wrestling at 120. He doesn't look undersized. I thought he was a little undersized when I saw he was going 120, but he looks like he's filling out.
Yeah, Cole Hammett looks very good and has been impressive in these last couple weekends. Jacob Gardner, very impressed with him. He's looked stronger and stronger. Jimmy Guire's taken a step back. I mean, he was a guy a couple years ago who was a surprise and did well at Hershey. He's taken a step back here and going into his senior season too.
Yeah, I mean, that happens, right? I mean, things happen, and in the sport of wrestling, you have to continue to stay better with these young guys always hunting for you. So, I mean, he finished 3rd in a deep weight class, but as you said, for a guy who did really well in his early part of his career, you would think at this point he'd be challenging for that top position.
126 pounds, your champion was Kenny Heyman of Cannon McMillan. He defeats Jet Pattison of McGuffey 3-1 for the title. Pattison knocked off Gianni Martini of Trinity in the semis with a 10-1 major decision. Martini came back for 3rd. Yeah,
and Heyman, again, just continues to impress and got another championship here at Tri-CAD, and excited to see what he does this upcoming weekend at Escape the Rock.
132 pounds, your champion was Austin Ryan of Burgettstown. He wins by fall in the finals over Danny Boardley of Trinity. 138 pounds, Nate Stevenson of Waynesburg. He was your champion. He beats Todd Fisher of Best Center in the finals with a 10-5 decision. 145 pounds, your champion Trey Howard of Waynesburg. 2 falls and an 8-4 final over Jacob Duncan of Ringgold to win the title. Duncan had to knock off Shane Kemper of Burgettstown in the semis 6-2 to get to that point. Kemper comes back for 3rd.
I was impressed with the way Duncan wrestled. I thought he's been doing well this season for a guy who's definitely under the radar. There's no doubt about it. But Trey Howard, I don't know if he's fully healthy or not, because he hasn't looked like he did since the Beast. The Beast of the East was his marquee tournament this year. But I don't know if he's completely healthy, and I think that you saw that in that 8-4 decision. But good win by Duncan over Kemper.
Yeah, you mentioned Howard may not have been at full strength. Duncan, though, when he beat Kemper the way he did, because he really dominated that match, you'd wonder, is Kemper just, once you get to those challenging matches, because he is up quite a few weights from last year, maybe that's why the struggle came in. But no, I think Duncan just really having a strong season so far for Ringgold. 152 pounds, your champion was Luca Augustine of Waynesburg. He knocks off Donovan McMillan of Peters Township 5-3 for the title. He also beat Eli Brinsky of South Fayette 5-3 in the semis to get there. Brinsky ends up finishing in 3rd.
Yeah, this was by far the deepest weight class of Tri-CAD. 152 pounds. You had number 15, Luca Augustine, defeating number 18, Donovan McMillan, 5-3. It's a good win for Luca after a disappointing showing at Powerade where he lost in the blood round to Nick Montalbano. So good for him to come back strong. But then you look at, in the 3rd place match, Eli Brinsky, who was a search champion in the preseason. He was number 23 in the state, but he beats number 7, Ethan Barr, 7-2. So, I mean, Ethan Barr's a solid wrestler.
Yeah, this was a deep weight, and 3 of the 4 were all in the bottom half. McMillan kind of breezed to the finals with 2 falls. Augustine had to beat all 3, beat Barr in the quarters, then Berinsky, and then McMillan to win the title. So
hard road for him, but well-deserved.
Yeah, no easy task for Luke Augustine in that weight class. 160 pounds, your champion was Colby Morris of Waynesburg. He knocks off Colton Gisero of Peters Township 5-2 for the title. 170 pounds, Christian Clutter of McGuffey, a big win over Jeff Markert of Peters Township, 4-2 to win the championship.
Yeah, and Clutter, we talked about how impressed we were with him at Powerade, taking Jared McGill to wire in the finals at 170 pounds, and he didn't disappoint following up at the Tri-Cat against Jeff Markert, and a guy who I'm super high on, I think, and again, we got to see him at the Surge and just looks so strong, and he's had some great results this year. Clutter was going to be a really tough test for him, but you got to see where Clutter is just a step above. And, man, I'm excited to see him and hopefully Jared McGill wrestle again, maybe in the state finals.
And Christian Clutter ends up being the outstanding wrestler for his efforts at that tournament. 182 pounds, your champion, Garrett Ninehouse of Cannon McMillan. He wins by major decision, 13-3 over Brandon Matthews of Peters Township.
Yeah, Garrett doesn't seem to be slowing down, with that knee, and takes care of business against a stout Brandon Matthews, a guy who a little undersized for 182, I think, but still a good win for Ninehouse, defeating him 13-3.
We talk about the top 4 in the state, right, with Ninehouse, Stout, Joel, and then obviously Starocki. But in WPIAL, Matthews, I think, is in that clear top 4 in that conversation. And to see that separation from 1 to 4 is something to notice.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say he's clearly the number 4, but he's right up in there with the rest of them. I mean, I still think he's undersized. We've seen him down at 170 this year, so I don't think unless he's put on a ton of weight, it's going to be tough for him to scrap with those 182 pounders. But clearly, he's doing something right. If you make it to the finals here at Tri-Cad. At 182 will be interesting to see because like a guy like Cole Whitmer from Trinity who won 195, he's up from 182 because it's like why, there's a lot of dangerous guys there at 182, and you get on the wrong side of a bracket, and you could be, you may not be making a trip to states.
195 pounds, speaking of Cole Whitmer of Trinity, he ends up winning the title. He beats John Vargo of Bentworth 5-3 for the championship.
That's a huge win for him. Vargo came in ranked number 3 in the state in AA, and Whitmer, a guy who I've been impressed with this year, again, up a weight to 195, beats him 5-3 in the finals. So after Powerade, still up in the air about his level and where he's going to be at, but 95 is a little bit more wide open than WPIAL. Actually, a lot more wide open.
So. Yeah, because 3 spots are essentially clinched when you go into it with Ninehouse, Joel, and Stout. 220 pounds, your champion, Jacob Baker, best center. He wins by fall over Alec Hendel of Cannon McMillan for the title. And 285 pounds, your champion, Gerald Comedy of Washington. He knocks off Riley Kemper of Burgestown 8-2 for the championship.
How about Gerald Comedy? I mean, this is a guy who kind of came out of nowhere, right? And I saw that there was an article on him, and he's a football player. But you look at the guys that were ranked here, right? He's the only one that finished in the top 4 that was not ranked in the state. Riley Kemper was 15th. Quentin Franklin from South Fayette was 10, and Ramos from Cannon Mac was 21. And Gerald Comedy is like, whoa. Someone needs to. I think Eric Knopsteiner needs to get on the board here and figure out who Gerald Comedy is because he's not respecting him enough.
Yeah, I mean he showed some flashes in individuals last year, but I think one of those guys because Washington doesn't wrestle enough, and in some of these bigger tournaments that he doesn't have enough gas in the tank when it comes to individual postseason time. But he showed it here. I mean he went to double OT with Quentin Franklin and knocked him off 6-2, and then takes care of business against Kemper 8-2. So he was definitely impressive throughout, and he was actually the first ever Washington wrestler to win a Tri-County Tournament championship.
Really?
Yeah, and the tournament started back in 2006.
I was going to say, it had to have been in the 2000s. So, yeah, because, I mean, Washington, my dad will tell you all about Wash High and Little Washington and how good they were, and, it's a shame to see that, the program is where it's at. And
took 13 years to get his first Tri-County champion, but Gerald Comedy is that. Good trivia one for whenever your dad asks you in a few years. Just remember that.
I will. Don't you forget.
Let's switch gears now to the MAC tournament, where West Allegheny was your champion by a narrow margin, 167 points. Hopewell, number 2 with 166. Moon, number 3. Freedom, number 4. And Mars, number 5. You look at some of the champions, and they kind of skipped all over the place as far as where they had the matches going. But any notable results here that you had noticed?
Well, I mean, I saw Jordan Waters from West Allegheny. He beat Eddie Hune from Carlinson 9-0. I think that's a really good win for him. I mean, Jacob Ely beating Kenny Dushek 5-3. Jacob Ely's a guy who I thought, I mean, he's number 1 in the state. We moved him up there because I think he deserves it. But
that's too close.
I mean, I guess maybe my expectations are a little high because Jacob Ely tech followed Connor Redinger. Yeah. So I'm thinking like, man, you tech fall a guy who's top 3 in the state last year. Of course, he's a guy coming up a ton of weight. So, but Kenny Dushek, I mean, that's a guy.
Stud, yeah.
You can't be upset with that. You look at 38, Daniel Yesick from Ambridge. He had a good win over Donovan Chambers from Elwood City. So, impressed with that. Those 4 at 138 pounds. Outside of that, the biggest match that I wanted to see was Ty McGeary and Jake Richardson. Richardson's a guy who beat Cole Spencer from Pine Richland earlier in that week. Spencer's obviously the state medalist from Pine Richland. Richardson beat him, so I'm thinking, okay, well, McGeary's a state medalist, and this is going to be a really good test for him, especially after losing to Jack Bloomer. But McGeary gets the job done, 4-3 over Richardson, a guy who's, surprisingly enough, he hasn't made it to the state tournament yet, but he comes in ranked number 11th in the state, so clearly he's a guy who's going to be in the mix. 182 pounds, though, Austin Wally from Elwood City, he beats a state medalist in Bryson Miller 3-2. That was a big win for him, and I'm surprised to see Bryson Miller down at 182. I am. Right. You know, we got to see him at the Surge wrestle 220 because we had no one at under 95 pounds, so we bumped him up. But surprised to see him at 182, and Austin Wally's, I mean, clearly right there with a guy who's a state medalist.
You have to wonder now, does he consider going back to 195, or does he want to do battle with Austin Wally a couple of more times, because he'll have to see him in sections and WPIALs and regionals, so he'll see him quite a few more times. And then Nico Flatty in that same weight class also finishing in 3rd place as well. Now over to the Indiana Bow Wood Wrestling Tournament from this past weekend. West Mifflin, your highest WPIAL placer. They were 4th. South Park finishing in 9th place. Any WPIAL guys really stick out to you here in this tournament?
Well, Zach Macy's down to 138 from Chartiers Valley. He's a guy who was a state qualifier last year. Comes in ranked number 14th in the state, but he had been up as high as 52 before the holiday season. So, you know, I was wondering, I was like, man, 52, that's a pretty big jump for him. But he beats Joe Moetti from Brashear 8-7 in a really tight match there. Moetti is a guy, JoJo's, you know, he's wrestling for a city school. You're not going to see him a whole lot this season. So we got to see him at the Surge. I like the way he wrestles. He's hard nosed. He's always in a match, and clearly he's right there with a guy like Zach Macy. So 38 was a good one. You look at 170. Angelo Joseph, or I say Angelo Joseph, it's AJ Ryan from Indiana in the bracket. They have his full name, so it's weird to say that. But he dropped a tough match to Cole Sosong from Portage. Really not a WPIAL guy, but a guy I think we should keep our eye on is Braden Croker from Cranberry. He actually goes to Oil City, but Cranberry and Oil City co-op this year. He pinned his way through it, the championship at 220. So, you know, definitely not the quality or caliber of like a Westmoreland County, but still some good matches here.
Any other tournament, the Tool City Tournament up in Meadville, North Allegheny goes there, and they finish in 3rd place for the WPIAL. Also Fox Chapel in this one as well, finishing in 18th place. But some notable results in this one. Yeah,
Dylan Coy dominates his way to a title here at 106 pounds from North Allegheny. He pins Hunter Robinson of General McLean in the finals in 3 minutes and 43 seconds. Impressed with the way Dylan's wrestling. I mean, he hasn't really been tested this year. He's just been wrestling that strong throughout. Freddie Junko from North Allegheny. He took fourth in a weight where I was surprised. I thought for sure he'd be in the finals. He lost a surprising defeat to Carter Dawson from Williamsport, and he takes fourth, as I mentioned. And at 145 pounds, Avery Bursick from Fox Chapel, he took third in that weight class. 152 pounds, Brady Lesko from North Allegheny, he gets pinned in the finals, but finishes ahead of a guy who's highly ranked, and that's John Dale from Moshannon Valley. So obviously a good showing by him. But one of the more impressive ones for me was Nick Marcinelli from North Allegheny. He beats Mark McGonigal from Clearfield in the finals 11-0, but he had a nice win over Anthony Robinson from Williamsport, so it was a good showing for him. And then John Hoover just kind of dominated his way to a championship at 170 pounds. The North Allegheny Tiger really showed that he's one to push around at 170. It's a good thing he's not 182. You just have another guy in that mix at the logjam here at 182 in the WPIAL. 220 pounds, Ben Grafton from North Allegheny. This is Rob Watko's boy. He loves him. He always is messaging me, telling me, hey, don't sleep on Ben Grafton. And actually, he beat Adam Young, who is ranked number 8 in the state in the championship round, but then in the consies lost to him for the third place match, so he takes fourth. But overall, really good showing by North Allegheny. Curious to see how this translates over to, the postseason. It's weird not having to see North Allegheny this year. They haven't been in any really of the big tournaments so far, which is weird.
Yeah, and they have some studs, so it's like you have to wonder why they aren't in some of these tournaments. But at the end of the day, we're going to see them in the Allegheny County tournament, and then we'll get to see them here coming up in the postseason. You just have to wonder how they're going to fare. We talk about these top 4 teams that were in the quad meet. Can North Allegheny get in that mix?
Yeah, again, you look at the rest of the field, as you mentioned. It's hard to take the pulse of that when they haven't really wrestled some really top quality teams. I'm not saying that's it should be a bad thing, but it's hard to weigh them out, right? It's hard to see, like Hempfield beating Canamac as soundly as they did. That really propelled them up in the rankings. We actually just released new dual team rankings, Greg, and man, there was a lot of shakeups because number ones are no longer. Bethlehem Catholic fell. They lost to Liberty in a crazy match. Liberty is really, really good. They were definitely a little underrated coming into this. So they're no longer number 1. Liberty's number 1. But you have Kiski area who they're at number 3 still. Seneca Valley, number 8 still. You have Hempfield at number 10, Waynesburg 11, Canamac 13. But then after that, Thomas Jefferson, I have them at 19 because I really was impressed with the way they've been competing this year. And then Norwin at 21. So can North Allegheny, can they really be in that mix? Yeah, I think they can.
Yeah, they really can. You have North Allegheny in the mix. Maybe after a big win from Norwin, can they get into this mix now that they've knocked off Franklin Regional? Because I know Franklin Regional was a team we looked at as a possibility. So you have some teams now that could make this really, hey, let's not make it quite a top 4. It could be a top 8 in this thing in AAA.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. I think Kiski sort of separated themselves, in my opinion, a little bit. And I know the scores wouldn't indicate that, but they got the right pieces in place. They're not going to be giving up forfeits anymore. So, that's a huge thing. I think they got their heavyweight kind of Stone Joseph back in the mix. That was his first time back on the mat when they wrestled in the quad. So I think they got the right sort of personnel in place, so I think it's going to go good from here. I
think Kiski is if you had to pick one sure thing, you'd say them, and maybe a second sure thing, Seneca Valley. I like those as a 1-2. Hempfield and Cannon McMillan maybe the most vulnerable of the 4. But again, who's it going to be? Is it Waynesburg? Is it North Allegheny? Is it Thomas Jefferson? Is it Norwin getting into that mix? There's a number of teams here that we've talked about and having good seasons so far. How are they going to shake up against these top perennial teams?
And it all depends. That's a word I use a lot in police work. It all depends. It all depends on this and that. It all depends on what type of lineup Waynesburg brings out, right? Because if they wrestled the lineup that they wrestled against Chartiers Valley, they're not going to do well, right? So, and that's not a slight on Chartiers Valley, but if Waynesburg wants to be number 11 in the state like they are, they're going to have to wrestle like they did at the Beast of the East. They're going to have to wrestle they're going to have to get some big wins from some guys, right? So again, but I wouldn't sleep on Thomas Jefferson either. I like Thomas Jefferson, man. I don't like them enough to put the right head coach in under their rankings, because
right.
I have the wrong head coach and I had it right and then it somehow reverted back. I don't know. Maybe it's cursed, but check out the team rankings. They're recently updated. AA as well are updated, and Burrell, man, they're gonna have a showdown with Kiscaria on my birthday, January 11th.
And speaking of Burrell, we are joined by the head coach of Burrell, Josh Shields, kind enough to join us. Josh, thanks for joining us on the show.
Anytime, guys. Thanks for having me.
Well, Josh, you guys just finished up a couple of big weekends with the Powerade tournament as well as the Westmoreland County. How are you guys doing? Are you guys feeling okay health-wise? And are you happy with how you guys did the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, like I said, obviously the Powerade tournament, one of the toughest tournaments in the country. I thought the guys went there and we battled. Walked away with 2 place winners, Ian Oswald and Brian Gall. Austin Lee lost in the blood round. But overall, a lot of guys got some experience, got some good mat time. That's really why we wrestle those type of tournaments. And, I thought we carried some of that momentum into the county tournament. I don't think we had a really good day one of the county tournament. We lost a couple of close matches I felt we could have won. But, I was really impressed with the way the guys respond on day 2 of the county tournament. Everyone that was wrestling day 2 ended up placing. So that's always a good sign when you see that from your guys responding in the way they did after sort of not our best day 1 of the county tournament.
Yeah, you mentioned Ian Oswald, and he ends up knocking off Curtis Phipps after dropping a decision to him in the semifinals of the Powerade tournament. Talk a little bit about what changed from the first match to the second.
Yeah, obviously Curtis is a tremendous wrestler, really good in all 3 positions. There's a reason why he's accomplished what he's accomplished in his young career. But really, really what it came down to was it really was on Ian's mindset. After looking back and watching film of him wrestling Phipps the first time versus the second time, his body language was completely different in the second match. He was a lot more confident. I don't know if it was maybe sort of under, like I said, Powerade tournament, a little bigger stage than the county tournament in a sense. But he just wrestled with a lot more confidence. And that just led to, him moving on his feet, him getting to positions where, he was good at. And we knew against Curtis, he's obviously, like I said, good in all 3 positions. We saw we had an opportunity to, either escape or get a reversal in the, in the third period. That's sort of what we focused on in the week leading up to the county tournament. And Ian, his mat IQ is above and beyond any 10th grader that I've ever coached. He made in-match adjustments. Like I said, we focused on some things during the week of practice, and he executed his game plan perfectly. That was the best match I've seen him wrestle in the 2 years that I've coached him.
What other wrestler on your team really made a difference from the previous week of Powerade to the Westmoreland County tournament that you noticed?
Another guy, Noah Linderman. He's one of those guys, was battling for a starting spot last year, had a below a 500 record. He came out at King of the Mountain, had a tremendous tournament, placed in the King of the Mountain tournament, which is, as we know, is one of a tough tournament. And then at Powerade, he kind of, I don't know what it was. He didn't have his best match. He ended up going 0-2. But we know he was certainly better than that. And, he's one of the hardest working kids on our team. He really, that was really some motivation for him after he sort of tasted that success of King of the Mountain. He was upset, disappointed with his performance at Powerade, and he responded by, going out and taking third in the county tournament. And this is a kid that really just started wrestling a few years ago, was sort of just a fill-in guy last year, and now he's sitting at 12 wins, and he's the guy we're going to be counting on down the stretch to, win against the opponent's better guys.
And Coach, it's funny you said that, because I was really impressed with him at King Mountain. I had to kind of go back and look like, hey, where did he come from? Because I didn't recognize the name, so to speak. And then, as you said, Powerade, you're like, okay. But then coming back hard at Westmoreland County, that had to feel really good for him. Talk about just, like you said, in-match adjustments for like Ian Oswald. Is that something you can coach, or is that something that just kind of happens? Because I know, making in-match adjustments is so tough.
Yeah, so one of our philosophies is, and always when I'm coaching, we always instruct our guys that, during any match, they need to be aware of 3 things at all times. That's the score, that's the time, and that's the location. Obviously where they are on the mat. All those 3 things should constantly be running through your head, and you should be thinking of those things when you're making sort of in-match decisions. So we can teach those type of things, but, Ian's above and beyond, those minor things. He's making adjustments at a rapid speed. And, taking advantage of them. And like I said, he's one of those guys that he never gives up bad points. He's not a guy that's going to come out and give up the first takedown. He wrestles smart. He stays in good position. And then, when he gets in positions where he's good at, he takes advantage of them and he ends up scoring. So, he's just getting better and better, every day. That's coming off of a 4th place finish in the state tournament last year. So, he's definitely looking at his best right now, and that's going to hopefully continue, this next month and a half, 2 months.
Yeah, I have to agree with you because at King of the Mountain, him being Will Bencourt was a huge win for him. I thought, a guy who can stop a Mack truck and Bencourt, and he really had to make some adjustments against him. So, as you mentioned, he was 4th in the state, but okay, so what? Are you really one of the elite guys? And now you're starting to see him take down guys like Phipps and Bencourt and kind of hit that next gear, and he's only a sophomore, which is incredible. So it's good problem for you to have, not the rest of the field. But you look at your team overall. I mean, you've won what? 4,000 straight WPIAL titles. It's I lost count.
12,
I stopped counting at 9, I think. You look at your schedule thus far, and you haven't really been pushed since that opening weekend against Waynesburg. You kind of cruised to some wins here. You got, I believe, Summit Academy and this week, and then it'll end the week with Kiski area. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, Wednesday senior night versus Summit at home, and then obviously Friday. At home versus Kiski.
That's a huge one. I mean that Burrell Kiski that's a huge one regardless of where it's at. You got to be happy it's in your place, not theirs though. Talk about that match, that tradition there, and just what you're telling your guys going into Friday.
Yeah, I mean it's a great opportunity, for our team to compete against Kiski, not only one of the top teams in the state, but like I said, they now have a national ranking next to their name. So that's a match, you're looking at it top to bottom. Obviously they got their studs and, we have ours, but, there's going to be a lot of close matches that are going to be wrestled. Some were favored, some were not favored, but it's certainly going to be an entertaining match for the fans. I really think it's going to be a match. It's really going to come down to, them close matches, what we call those swing matches. We wrestled them, I think almost half our weights we wrestled this weekend at the county tournament. We won some and then we lost some. But there's a lot of close matches in there. We'll make some adjustments this week in practice, and, our guys will be ready for that match. And it comes at a great time. We look at our schedule as this is the regular season. And once that Kiski match is over with, we're now what we call our postseason. Every match from that point forward, has a direct impact on our team and individual goals. Like I said, right after Kiski, we have Valley, but then the following week we go to Brookfield Doles, and we're going to be wrestling some of the top teams in Double A, and we got the section championship right around the corner. So guys are looking good right now. We're really going to see on Friday, where we're at as a whole. We're going to be tested. We're going to be pushed. I'm looking forward to seeing how the guys respond to that match, and I really think that's gonna sort of kick us into gear, for what we call the postseason. So yeah, looking forward to that match Friday. Great, like I said, it's awesome that you guys have them ranked 2nd or 3rd in AAA. We're ranked 4th in Double A in the state, and we're neighboring schools. We're touching each other. I know a lot of their guys. I help coach some of those guys in the summer, and vice versa. So it's a great match, great rivalry. The kids get up for it. The community certainly gets up for it. And we're looking forward to that test.
Yeah, that environment is awesome, and it's just so fun as a spectator, and just to be a part of that, I'm sure, is just amazing. And I love the fact that, like you said, you go to Brookville duels. You guys do not shy away from that tough competition. I mean, Ian Oswalt, he finished 4th in the state last year, and he had 10 losses, right? So I mean, you know, most
47-10,
right? I mean, that's a crazy. I mean, 57 matches in a year, and you know, you're talking about some huge tournaments that you're going to. I got to ask you, how do you feel like that helps your guys prepare for that postseason? I mean, do you feel like that really just kind of pushes them to that new level?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, like I said, it's, you know, obviously in the postseason you're wrestling tough guys, but it's hard to really make adjustments. You know, you can make a little adjustment from one week to the next, but it's tough to do. You know, if wrestling teams like a Waynesburg, Powerade, Kiski, you know, our weaknesses are being exposed, and you know, we have time to make those adjustments. You know, we have a month and a half, 4 weeks until the postseason. So we're able to make those adjustments in the room, and that just sort of, like I said, it you know, it knocks those kids down a little bit. It makes them hungry. You know, when you're always at the top, when you're always having success, you know, so I've seen sometimes guys lose that drive. But when you continue to being challenged, when you're taking tough losses, when your team's taking tough losses, that's going to keep pushing you. You know, so hopefully when the time comes to it, and, you know, end of January comes around, these guys are ready. We've had our weaknesses exposed. We've adapted. We've grown. And now we're ready for the postseason.
Well, Josh, you look at where you guys are at as far as the state goes, because I know you guys are obviously wanting to get that state medal. We've talked about that the last couple of years. Not to overlook the WPIAL, but when you look at you guys as far as where you're at in the state, how do you feel like you guys shake up and pair up with the other top teams in the state right now?
Yeah, it's, you know, there's a lot of good teams out there. I really look at that. I think there's, you know, 8 to 10 teams that I feel really, with a good weekend, can come away with a medal in Hershey. So, you know, we're preparing for that. Obviously, the step one is to win the WPIAL championships to put us in a favorable position in the bracket. But yeah, we're ready. And like obviously said, you know, we wrestle tournaments like King of the Mountain so we can get exposure to some of those teams out east. We go to the Brookville duels, you know, to wrestle the Chestnut Ridge and duel meet, to wrestle the Brookville and Reynolds. So, you know, we'll have exposure to all the top teams, and you know, we'll be making plans and adjustments. So whenever the time comes and the PIAA state team duels around here, our guys will be ready.
And Coach, when you look, I mean, if I'm going to be honest with you, outside of the top 2 in the state, I just wrote teams on the back of a piece of paper and I just threw them around and I just start picking them out, because it's almost impossible to rank those. I mean, you have the Reynolds and you have Southern Columbia, but then it sort of gets a little murky. Let me ask you, who are you excited to wrestle? You know, I'd like a matchup with you and Saucon Valley, to tell you the truth. If I'm being selfish, I'd like to see that matchup. Is there anyone in particular you're like, man, I want to see how our team stacks up against them?
Yeah, you certainly named one of them. That's, you know, a team sort of looking on our radar, and I didn't really know how that Notre Dame team was going to be, but Saucon seemed to, you know, beat them in the dual meet, so they'll probably be one of the top teams out of the East. Another, I mean, one we see often, but Chestnut Ridge. Right. You know, they've outplaced us at King of the Mountain. They outplaced us at Powerade. So, you know, based on that, you know, you'd expect they're a favor in that matchup. So that's definitely someone we're looking forward to wrestling. We know if we can go to Brookville, and obviously the goal is to win, but, you know, just to test ourselves, to see where we're at. You know, whether we win or we lose, we're going to have a good gauge of where we're at amongst the top teams in the state. So, yeah, definitely looking forward to, you know, wrestling against Chestnut Ridge at the Brookville duels. That's always a good, you know, rivalry we have amongst each other. Like I said, we pretty much wrestle the exact same schedule minus section competition. So we're looking forward to getting a chance to duel them. It's a well-coached team, tough kids, so it should be a good one.
Well, thanks for joining us on the show, Josh. It's always a pleasure catching up with you, and best of luck as you guys head into the rest of your season.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Like I said, appreciate all the support, and yeah, looking forward to a nice week ahead of us with Summit Academy, then Friday against Kiski. That match will also be aired on the Westmoreland Sports Network, so if anyone can't make the trip, you'll be able to catch that match live on there. So That should add to the excitement of the dual meet.
Absolutely, and get that place packed. You know, I know it will be, but man, that's if you can make it, you better be there, because that's going to be a heck of a dual meet there, and it's always a lot of fun there. So, thank you again, Josh, for joining us, and look forward to seeing you.
Hey, you two guys, appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks again to Josh Shields of Burrell for joining us on the show. He alluded to the matchup coming up on Friday against Kiski, but we got some other tournaments going on as well this upcoming weekend. We have the Burgettstown Invitational Tournament. A lot of WPIAL schools headed to Burgettstown for that one. Also, in addition, we have the Jersey Shore Tournament, where Greensburg, Salem, and Thomas Jefferson will be at. The Reynolds Duels, where Seneca Valley will be wrestling. And Escape the Rock at Council Rock South, where we have Bell Vernon, Connellsville, Canon-Mac, Hempfield, and Fraser all participating. Yeah,
it's a tournament that I'll be at. I love that tournament. I like the way that they get some high quality competition from all around the area. There's a lot of District 1, District 11 powerhouses team. You get some teams from New Jersey there as well. The one I have circled, though, is that Reynolds and Seneca Valley match. Reynolds is the new number 1 ranked team in the state in AA, and Seneca Valley sitting at 8 in AAA. So those two would match up really well, in my opinion. And of course, you have Burrell, who comes into the year ranked number 4 in the state, and Kiski area happening on Friday, and they're number 3 in the state. My gosh, we just talked about it with Josh, but that's such a huge match between those two programs. But yeah, we're starting to see kind of the pieces in place, right? We're seeing where teams are and who's there and who's not, and who's going to bring it, who's not. Excited to see how a team like Hempfield area does out at Escape the Rock. It's going to be fun, man. We have a lot of good wrestling coming up here. And then Coach Shields alluded to it, the Brookville Duels, the Ultimate Duels, which always brings in some of the best AA teams in the state there. So, yeah, we're going to find out here. We're going to have a good idea going into the section and team playoffs, who should be where.
Yeah, you have that, and then also the Allegheny County tournament coming up next weekend as well. So a couple of good tournaments here coming up over the next 2 weekends. Couple that with 2 big weekends of subsection wrestling here coming up that's going to set the standings and get us set for the subsection team tournament. So a lot of stuff going to unfold here over the next couple of weeks. Is going to give us a good idea of where we are for the postseason for team and individual.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I said, the scenery is going to be painted here real quickly, and I'm excited because there's a lot of toss-up stuff here. And we didn't have time to ask Josh, but I wanted to see who he thinks is going to make it give them a run for the money in the WPIAL, because I don't know. There's a lot of.
I think this is one of those years where everybody's assuming we're fighting for second. I think.
Yeah, but who is that? Who is that second and third team? That's the big question, in my opinion.
I think you look at Derry, you look at McGuffey, Burgettstown getting in that mix after a strong Tri-County. Freedom, if they can get healthy. I mean, I know they've had some injuries, been banged up a little bit, and had some holes. So if Freedom can get in that mix. But those are probably the teams I would be looking at as far as the WPIAL and AA
But it's
goes.
not. I mean, it's not set. It's not set. It's not like AAA. AAA, where you pretty much know who the top 4 or 5 teams are.
Right.
In AA, you just really don't know. I mean, like he alluded to, if you get a couple good wins and you have a good weekend, it really doesn't matter who you are. You could end up making it to the state tournament, really, in my opinion, especially as a team. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and the tough part for AA is you always have that matchup on Monday that you always have to face off to get into go to Hershey sometimes. Sometimes they get to take 2 in. Sometimes they end up taking only 1. So that's what because it's always they always face off against a District 10 team.
Right.
And District 10 is usually tough in AA because you always have Reynolds there, and then you always have a Fort LaBeouf in that mix.
Sagertown or Greenville.
Right. So it's very difficult to get past those teams on those Monday nights. But that being said, we talked about 3B being very competitive, and Derry is at the top of that list, but you have other teams in there into that mix too. And then you have, on the other side, you have McGuffey, I think, is very tough. Burgettstown can be tough. Freedom as well in 2A. So I would look at those teams as probably the teams that I'd be circling and saying, hey, these guys could challenge for 2 and 3.
Well, we'll find out here very shortly. So, Greg, looking forward to it.
And make sure you stay with us all this coming week as we're going to have updates for you, rankings updates, as well as different stories. And then, of course, we'll have coverage for you. Escape the Rock is going to be our biggest one. But we got a lot coming up for you here this week.
Yeah, absolutely. We do. And as I said before, we'll be at Escape the Rock. We'll give you some updates of all the guys and all the action going out there, out east. And, we're going to be on top of it. We got a lot of college stuff going on, too. Definitely check out our college podcast. Check out some other things coming your way. As I mentioned before, we're going to be doing some different features. We're going to be having some different gear on the site here as well. So stay tuned for some of that and just keep posted, man. And like I said, state dual team tournament, that's around the corner. So definitely check out the state team rankings as well, because those definitely took a hit. That the shakeup was big this last revision. And
if you're just wondering how you can stay up to date, you can check the website, or you can just follow us on Twitter or Facebook.
Yeah, Twitter is definitely the biggest platform we use, at PA Power Wrestle, and then at PAPowerWrestling.com for all your wrestling needs. We'll keep you informed.
I want to thank Josh Shields of Burrell again for joining us on the show. From a broadcast partner, Jeff Upson, I'm Greg Warnock. Thanks for listening in to WarUp on the WPIAL.